Mary Frances Winters, Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit. Black Fatigue delves into the history of white supremacist and racist systems and their impact on generations of Black people, eroding their mind, body, and spirit. Addressing racism on interpersonal, institutional, and structural levels, the book highlights the necessity for white people to actively oppose racism and advocate for systemic change. Get ready to explore the multiple dimensions of racial dynamics and the effects on Black people's mental health, socioeconomic well-being, and community experiences. You will also learn about the importance of intersectionality and the various ways one can champion anti-racism and function as a catalyst for meaningful societal transformation.
Black Fatigue and White Responsibility. Black fatigue is the result of centuries of oppression experienced by Black people. The collective trauma and continued racism contribute to this condition. Black Fatigue explores the history and impact of white supremacist systems and the effects on both Black people and society. The racism experienced on multiple levels must be fought with systematic changes to prioritize diversity and inclusion. White people must take responsibility to become anti-racists. Understanding racism and white privilege. The 2020 Black Lives Matter protests saw a lot of white people claiming ignorance about how everyday racism affects Black people. The author argues that white people must recognize and stop denying their white privilege. More so, they need to understand which behaviors imply a belief in white supremacy. It is not enough to not be racist, you must oppose racism in your words, deeds, and actions. The book also examines the power dynamics inherent in being part of a dominant group versus a subordinated group, citing the harm caused when the dominant group views themselves as the norm while framing the oppressed as deviant or abnormal. The book posits that internalizing these norms perpetuates racist power structures and harms Black people's sense of self. Deconstructing oppressive structures. This book highlights the essential steps to deconstruct oppressive systemic structures of power. Instead of making a business case for diversity, support anti-racism for the right reasons. Don't hide from uncomfortable conversations about equality in the workplace, and deprioritize white comfort. Embrace and support allyship, become an anti-racist actively opposing racism. Understand your power and act as an agent of social change by choosing ethical ways to spend money. These small steps can lead to bigger changes in society and promoting a more inclusive workplace. Racial inequality in socioeconomics. Racial inequality in socioeconomic status continues to persist despite living in the modern era. The gap between Black and white people's net worth, homeownership, and job security has a compounded effect over generations. Current strategies focus on Black people being the problem instead of deeply ingrained racist systems. The reality is that systemic racism has made wealth building incredibly difficult for Black people. Diverse teams and people of color occupying prominent leadership roles still remain a challenge, and schools are more segregated now than they were 6 decades ago. Black schools with fewer white students suffer from funding and resource scarcity. Ineffectual teaching practices discriminate against Black students, and constant racial bias affects Black children's growth and life prospects. We need to change the narrative that is focused on individual accountability instead of addressing systems that generate these disparities. Health disparities among Black Americans. Black Americans face multiple health disparities at higher rates than their white counterparts. These disparities can be attributed to structural racism, chronic stress, and intergenerational trauma. Black people have higher rates of infant mortality, heart attacks, strokes, asthma, and cancers such as breast and cervical. Black high school students are also more likely to attempt suicide than their white peers. Experiences of everyday racism contribute to chronic stress, which exacerbates these health disparities. Researchers have found that discrimination ages cells and contributes to premature aging. Black people also experience place-based stress when racism occurs in spaces they must traverse in their everyday lives. Historical trauma and its effects are also passed down from generation to generation. Addressing these health disparities requires addressing systemic racism and its effects on Black individuals and communities. Addressing healthcare disparities. Black Americans face worse healthcare outcomes due to systemic racism, including biased prescription practices and environmental racism. Addressing these disparities involves advocating for anti-racist healthcare policies and implementing individual self-care practices. Healthcare disparities continue to disproportionately affect Black Americans due to systemic racism. Studies demonstrate that physicians are more likely to prescribe pain medicine to white patients than Black ones, and Black Americans wait longer for healthcare than their white counterparts. Additionally, doctors tend to prescribe older, less effective medications to Black patients with mental health disorders, leading to negative side effects. Black women also face a higher risk of dying during childbirth compared to white women, even in middle-income brackets. Environmental racism also plays a role in healthcare disparities. Black and Hispanic individuals are more likely to live in areas without access to healthy food sources, contributing to worse overall health outcomes. To address these disparities, systemic changes are necessary, such as advocating for anti-racist healthcare policies like trauma-informed care. Additionally, promoting individual self-care practices like mindfulness can help alleviate the physical and psychological stress created by interpersonal racism. It is crucial to acknowledge and address these healthcare disparities to achieve health equity for all individuals. Intersectionality and Black fatigue. Living with multiple marginalized identities can increase Black fatigue. Understanding the privileges of heterosexual identity is crucial in combating intersectional discrimination. The concept of intersectionality emphasizes that people often belong to multiple marginalized groups, which shapes their experiences of discrimination. Living with multiple marginalized identities can exponentially increase Black fatigue, creating one insurmountable obstacle after another. For instance, if you identify as gay and Black, the compounded discrimination you face can intensify your Black fatigue. Despite this, many Black communities still stigmatize non-heteronormative identities. To combat intersectional discrimination, it is crucial to acknowledge and address the multiple identities and layers of discrimination that people navigate each day. This includes understanding the privileges that come with being heterosexual. These privileges include being able to show public affection without fear of negative reactions, not worrying that your relationship will cause you to lose your job, and feeling comfortable being open about your private life with family and friends. This is in contrast to individuals with non-heteronormative identities who may not have these privileges. It is important to note that Black fatigue is not solely experienced by those who identify with marginalized groups. Understanding and acknowledging the impact of intersectionality is crucial in combating discrimination, as it helps to create a more inclusive society. By recognizing the privileges afforded to certain groups, we can work towards a society that is equitable for everyone. Challenges faced by Black women, men, and children. Black women, men, and children face different adversities and negative stereotypes in the society. Black women are stereotyped as being resilient, angry, and promiscuous. Black children are more prone to childhood depression, and Black men continuously grapple with negative media portrayals of their masculinity. Additionally, Black men have higher incarceration rates compared to other races, with 1/3 of Black men serving a prison sentence at some point in their lives. Furthermore, Black people have higher divorce rates and choose to get married less often than white people. To combat negative stereotypes, Black people must strive to present more balanced portrayals of Black identities while creating their positive narratives about race and gender. Allyship for racial equity. As a white person, take responsibility for benefiting from and changing racist systems, become an anti-racist, leverage your power for social change, and overcome white fragility. For Black people, speak out, remain vigilant, say no sometimes, avoid deficit narratives, use your power, and prioritize self-care. To become an effective ally for racial equity, white people must recognize their role in benefiting from and perpetuating racist systems, and take responsibility for creating change. This includes acknowledging the intergenerational impact of slavery and the wealth gap between white and black people, and actively working to support reparations for black people. Rather than performative actions, white allies should interrogate and adapt racist systems, such as education and policing, through cultural audits and pushing for reforms. Becoming an anti-racist means recognizing and actively combating racial inequities, and using one's power and position to demand reform. This requires overcoming white fragility and engaging in uncomfortable conversations about race. Meanwhile, black people can take action by speaking out, remaining vigilant, and voting for policies that dismantle racism. They don't have a responsibility to teach white people about their own history, but should avoid deficit narratives that blame black people for their own oppression. Rather, they can use their power to lift up others and prioritize self-care by rejecting oppressive white norms and building a positive self-identity.
As we reach the end of this illuminating journey through the complexities of racism and its pervasive impact on Black lives, we realize the pressing need for systemic change to combat the devastating effects of Black fatigue. The book emphasizes the importance of challenging white supremacy, debunking harmful racial stereotypes, and fostering inclusivity and diversity across all social domains. Active and constructive allyship is a crucial component to tackle racial inequities and bring about genuine social change. By understanding the intersectionality of our multiple identities, embracing positive narratives about race and gender, and advocating for anti-racist healthcare policies, we become contributors to a more just, equitable, and compassionate society.